Wishes well doing, and welcome back to After They Found Atlantis. Today we're looking at the linear timeline of history. The thing that we were all taught in school. We started off in the Stone Age and we ended up here in the computer age in one line of history as time has gone by. We developed the horse and carriage, we went to the car, to the airplane. So it's developing, it's kind of like an evolution, right? So this is the teachings that we were taught in school. But what if it's not completely correct? What if there was some kind of a mass destruction and we got to a certain point in history where we were pretty advanced, but then we had to start all over again. We got wiped out and we lost everything that we had. We had to learn everything over again. This is what the linear timeline leaves out. It doesn't allow for this to happen. So today we're looking at a possibility of there being a cyclical timeline in history. We're going to look at the Timaeus. And in the Timaeus, it describes a cyclical history of mankind being destroyed by cataclysms. Now you might look at this picture and think about, for 200,000 years, man was in the Stone Age. What happened if he got hit by a meteor in the Stone Age? Well, he'd probably be bombed back right to the Stone Age, wouldn't he? But if mankind had developed further and had boats and cities and politics and all this, and then they got hit by a meteor, they would probably go back to the Stone Age and have to start all over again, forgot all your writing. And this is what the Timaeus is telling us. And it's going to talk all about the cyclical timeline.
I will tell an old world story which I heard from an aged man, for Critias, at the time of telling it, was, as he said, nearly 90 years of age, and I was about 10. Now the day was that day of the Apaturia, which is called the registration of youth, at which, according to custom, our parents gave prizes for recitations, and the poems of several poets were recited by us boys, and many of us sang the poems of Solon, which at that time had not gone out of fashion. One of our tribe, either because he thought so or to please Critias, said that in his judgment, Solon was not only the wisest of men, but also the noblest of poets. The old man, as I very well remember, brightened up at hearing this and said, smiling, "Yes, Eminander, if Solon had only, like other poets, made poetry the business of his life, and had completed the tale which he brought with him from Egypt, and had not been compelled, by reason of the factions and troubles which he found stirring in his own country when he came home, to attend to other matters, in my opinion he would have been as famous as Homer or Hesiod, or any poet." "And what was the tale about, Critias?" said Eminander. "About the greatest action which the Athenians ever did, and which ought to have been the most famous, but, through the lapse of time and the destruction of the actors, it has not come down to us." "Tell us," said the other, "the whole story, and how and from whom Solon heard this veritable tradition." He replied, "In the Egyptian delta, at the head of which the river Nile divides, there is a certain district which is called the district of Sais, and the great city of the district is also called Sais, and is the city from which King Amasis came. The citizens have a deity for their foundress, she is called in the Egyptian tongue Neith, and is asserted by them to be the same whom the Hellens call Athene. They are great lovers of the Athenians, and say that they are in some way related to them. To this city came Solon, and was received there with great honor. He asked the priests who were most skillful in such matters about antiquity, and made the discovery that neither he nor any other Hellene knew anything worth mentioning about the times of old. On one occasion, wishing to draw them on to speak of antiquity, he began to tell about the most ancient things in our part of the world, about Pharaonius, who is called the first man, and about Niobe, and after the deluge, of the survival of Deucalion and Pyrrha, and he traced the genealogy of their descendants, and reckoning up the dates, tried to compute how many years ago the events of which he was speaking happened. Thereupon one of the priests, who was of a very great age, said, "O Solon, Solon, You Hellenes are never anything but children, and there is not an old man among you. Solon in return asked him what he meant. I mean to say, he replied, that in mind you are all young, there is no old opinion handed down among you by ancient tradition, nor any science which is hoary, with age. And I will tell you why. There have been, and will be again, many destructions of mankind arising out of many causes, the greatest have been brought about by the agencies of fire and water, and other lesser ones by innumerable other causes. There is a story, which even you have preserved. That once upon a time Paedon, the son of Helios, having yoked the steeds in his father's chariot, because he was not able to drive them in the path of his father, burned up all that was upon the earth, and was himself destroyed by a thunderbolt. Now this has the form of a myth, but really signifies a declination of the bodies moving in the heavens around the earth, and a great conflagration of things upon the earth, which recurs after long intervals. At such times those who live upon the mountains and in dry and lofty places are more liable to destruction than those who dwell by rivers or on the seashore. And from this calamity the Nile, who is our never-failing Savior, delivers and preserves us. When, on the other hand, the gods purge the earth with a deluge of water, the survivors in your country are herdsmen and shepherds who dwell on the mountains, but those who, like you, live in cities are carried by the rivers into the sea. Whereas in this land, neither then nor at any other time, does the water come down from above on the fields, having always a tendency to come up from below, for which reason the traditions preserved here are the most ancient. The fact is, that wherever the extremity of winter frost or of summer does not prevent, mankind exist, sometimes in greater, sometimes in lesser numbers. And whatever happened either in your country, or in ours, or in any other region of which we are informed, if there were any actions noble or great or in any other way remarkable, they have all been written down by us of old, and are preserved in our temples. Whereas, just when you and other nations are beginning to be provided with letters, and the other requisites of civilized life, after the usual interval, the stream from heaven, like a pestilence, comes pouring down, and leaves only those of you who are destitute of letters and education, and so you have to begin all over again like children, and know nothing of what happened in ancient times, either among us, or among yourselves. As for those genealogies of yours which you just now recounted to us, Solon, they are no better than the tales of children. In the first place you remember a single deluge only, but there were many previous ones. In the next place, you do not know that there formerly dwelt in your land, the fairest and noblest race of men which ever lived, and that you and your whole city are descended from a small seed, or remnant of them which survived. And this was unknown to you, because, for many generations, the survivors of that destruction died, leaving no written word. For there was a time, Solon, before the great deluge of all, when the city which now is Athens, was first in war and in every way the best governed of all cities, is said to have performed the noblest deeds and to have had the fairest constitution of any of which tradition tells, under the face of heaven. Solon marveled at his words, and earnestly requested the priests to inform him exactly and in order about these former citizens. You are welcome to hear about them, Solon, said the priest, both for your own sake and for that of your city, and above all, for the sake of the goddess, who is the common patron and parent and educator of both our cities. She founded your city 1,000 years before ours, receiving from the earth and Hephaestus, the seed of your race, and afterwards she founded ours, of which the constitution is recorded in our sacred registers to be 8,000 years old. As touching your citizens of 9,000 years ago, I will briefly inform you of their laws and of their most famous action. The exact particulars of the whole we will hereafter go through at our leisure in the sacred registers themselves. If you compare these very laws with ours, you will find that many of ours are the counterpart of yours as they were in the olden time.
So there you have it. The Timaeus telling us that it's cyclical. Time is cyclical. Mankind's history is cyclical. We have rose and we have fallen. Why is this important for Atlantis? Because Atlantis cannot have existed in modern day archaeology, mainstream archaeology's timeline, because it would have to existed in the Stone Age. There was no triremes, there was no cities, there was no politics, there was no wars between nations, because it was the Stone Age. Within the dialogues themselves, it explains why and how this came to be. This history was lost. Lost history. We don't know what happened in the past. Why don't we know? Because we lost somewhere, we lost something. So I just wanted to explain today, this video, about cyclical history versus linear history. What do you think? Do you think we've been going along a timeline like this and we are at the pinnacle of mankind's existence, the top of the line, the very forefront of the evolution? Or do you think that we have evolved to a certain point and then had to start all over again? We've lost some advancements we've had. We've completely lost. Please put them in the comments below if you want. Or hit the like button. Nobody hits like button too much because I only have like 3 likes. Can someone give me one more, please? Thanks. But have a good day. You guys have a wonderful, wonderful life. And I'll see you next time.